And what you're doing is, as an individual, you've accepted that the Enlightenment has failed, but you're still on the Enlightenment path. You're still trying to get to the values through logic. Mm-hmm. You're going to fail.
I don't think so.
You're an agent of chaos.
No.
Why not?
Because it's only something that actually threatens you.
You do threaten the church. You're an atheist that goes to church. You're just shuffling from, oh, well, good is flourishing. Well, what's flourishing? Flourishing is good. Well, what's good? Good is flourishing. What's flourishing? Flourishing is good. I'm not asking you to do the dance.
I think so everyone, say, within a particular community, society, whatever level you want to look at it, they're doing well in their lives and they lead a good life. That's
Firstly,
flourishing.
your political narrative is, I'm going to be brutal now, forgive me. Well, I think there's good reasons for conversion, you know.
I'm sure you do.
I think there's good reasons for conversion. Atheism ain't working. It ain't working for England.
Again, what is atheism? It's just
secular humanism.
Right,
I'll leave you to
Secular humanism isn't working. We need something better than all of these.
I mean, how about conservatism?
Conservatism
Cultural
isn't working.
conservatism.
Rooted in what, though?
So basically, it's the path of life, I'd say. So you know,
let me ask
all
you
of
my
the
question
traditional
again.
values.
Rooted in what?
So Judeo-Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So
That tradition, yeah.
The whole project of the Enlightenment was to try and have the values of Christianity without the doctrines.
No, but they didn't have the values of Christianity.
They tried to have the values of Christianity without the doctrines. This idea of compassion, this idea of justice, and this idea of right and wrongs. They tried to use that paradigm, but they rejected all the structures that held it together. And now what we're seeing is all of these things are becoming undone. And now the whole thread, you've pulled on the thread, and now the whole carpet is just coming away. And it's kind of like, this is what we're doing in the West. We've got the thread to the rug, and we're just pulling at the rug, and the whole thing is just disappearing.
I think with the Enlightenment thing,
my God,
a lot of
you're
people had a really negative attitude towards Christianity as well, and just focused on, say, the atrocities which have been carried out in the past in the name of Christianity or any other religion. But they didn't actually focus on any of the good things that
the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment is a massive. The Enlightenment is failing. Peace be with you, bro.
Oh yeah.
Peace be with you. The Enlightenment is failing because without the Christian paradigm, without the Christian doctrine to hold it together, they have no root for their values. So now what they're trying to do is they're trying to recast values based upon their new doctrines. Their doctrines of humanity, their doctrines of the ego, the self,
the environment.
The environment, and so they're reinventing morality along those lines. Now the question is, we can already see them cannibalizing one another. Like, look at what's happened to J.K. Rowling. You know, a feminist, she couldn't be more liberal progressive, but because she believes that women are actually women, suddenly she's turned into what? She's turned into this heinous
she's
villain.
been othered and
and they're
people
trying
need to burn her books
exactly,
and all that,
exactly. And that's the world we've walked into. And freedom is diminishing in the West. Freedom of speech is decreasing because without those Christian paradigms, we have nothing to nourish them or to sustain them. You know, right and wrong is it's just what the Parliament says. So if Parliament says it's right, it's right. If Parliament says it's wrong, it's wrong.
After this.
So I think you recognise that. I say these things to you. I don't feel any pushback. So that tells me you kind of already agree with all of those things. So now let's take it a step deeper, which is assuming that you're a man of goodwill, which it sounds like you are, and that you recognise that which is good should be upheld and that which is bad should be resisted, right? How can we do that without embracing our Christian faith?
So I think there's definitely a need to, like, all of the processes, I'd say, of traditional Christianity and Judaism, I think are absolutely vital. And they're all about, you know, so say for the children that they grow up within a local community. that actually looks after them
Oh, no, that
looks
was
after
talking about later than that.
the father and the mother as the husband and wife.
Yeah.
And that you have monogamy as well.
Yeah.
And you have marriage between one man and one woman.
Amen.
And
Are you a Christian, bro?
I'm not. No.
Let me ask you this question.
But I believe all of these processes,
Really?
scientifically, they all work.
Do you believe that all of this is good for everybody else?
What?
Everything you've just described, it's good for everybody else.
It's good for everyone.
So is it good for you?
Yes.
So can you not
do it when Mohammed Hijab is here? When when there's a crowd of Muslims, that's what you want to do.
Can you not embrace them for yourself then, as a Christian?
There's just minimum Muslims.
I think, I go to church anyway, but basically I don't believe in God.
Yep.
Bit of a contradiction there. So
A little bit.
but I think that it's just the processes that are absolutely vital.
Yeah.
And I think
Accidents
you
happen,
can't get
guys.
rid of those processes,
Yeah.
because if you do, then the whole thing fails.
Yeah.
And it just you get the atomization of everyone. And so I think that's
The thing is,
massive
the thing
negative
is,
thing.
it is precisely because of our belief in God and in the kind of the God that we believe in that these values make sense.
I think logically they work as well.
That was the whole idea of the Enlightenment. We can get to these values through rationalism. That was the whole project of the Enlightenment. And what you're doing is, as an individual, you've accepted that the Enlightenment has failed.
Yeah.
But you're still on the Enlightenment path. You're still trying to get to the values through logic. You're gonna fail.
I don't think so.
Well, the Enlightenment already has failed collectively, trying to do exactly that.
I'd say the reason it has is because it. So the underlying ethos of that society is you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Whereas the underlying ethos of a traditional society is that basically, you need to stick to the structure.
Yeah.
And then the structure actually works for the benefit of everyone.
But the society that came to the conclusion you can do whatever you want didn't start there. It started with this idea that we believe in the family structure is important.
Yeah.
We believe that Christian values are good, but we don't believe in God.
Right.
And then they ended up with do whatever you want, so long as it doesn't hurt anyone else.
Okay.
Right? That's the path you're on. You're just further back.
I don't think it's quite like that, but for instance, I would say that obviously there's a lot of steps that have happened before we embrace liberal society. And
what are some of those steps?
Well, there was the TV, for instance, and
you're thinking of technology, but that certainly has an impact on how people live. But that doesn't. That is only something that will communicate the rot if the rot is already there. I'm talking about intellectually.
To be honest, that was in terms of my own life, that was what was already there for the whole, pretty much the whole of it. So started off with I guess with all the messages from the TV of the new world, and how it would all just function on the basis of people could just do whatever they want, and somehow this would all function. And then a lot of what I saw from Christianity, I'd say, was quite weak-willed.
Yes.
But when I was younger, certainly. Yeah.
Did you hear that, church? What he saw from Christianity was weak-willed.
So I went to a Christian school, and they it wasn't an actual message that they were putting out of why all of these structures were important that existed within Christianity, why their version of morality was extremely important, and I think there needed to be more of that.
The thing is that our morality is based upon the idea that God exists, and morality needs to reflect the ontology of God, the nature of God. So because God is just, we must be just. Because God is merciful, we must be merciful. Because God is love, we must be love. Because God is truth, we must value truth.
Yes.
Yeah. Because God is a Trinity, we can have a family.
Yes.
It's kind of like the idea that you can have our morality without our belief in God. Like, You can make it work as an individual if you just have this cognitive dissonance.
Right,
But the reality is society wasn't able to sustain that narrative. Right? And you're making it work for you as an individual, but you're doing it through cognitive dissonance. Your beliefs and your values are not in line with one another. Because if you're saying that God doesn't exist, then what you're saying is that there is no cause behind this creation. That at base, this world is just a product of a random chance, and that we are just animals with no greater purpose or calling. And so in that cosmos, you are actually free to do whatever you want.
I would say that, so there's the question, do you want your society to have a future? So I mean, for me, that's a pretty important question.
Yep.
And there's the other one, which is that the recognition that the first ever human civilization was a product of absolute goodness, and that the continuation of human civilization is also a product of absolute goodness
but
as well.
goodness, what that language of goodness makes no sense unless you believe in something called good.
So it's all of the processes that lead to the continuation and the flourishing of human society.
But how do we measure flourishing?
So it's working.
Flourishing,
it's
Nazi
working
Germany
for everyone.
worked.
No, it didn't work, did it?
It was destroyed.
It didn't quite create the 1,000-year Reich that
it was destroyed by its enemies, but it worked.
I mean, I wouldn't say it worked. I'd say it was a massive failure. It was
because it was
initially
destroyed
by enemies and then kind of imploded in violence.
No, it was destroyed by its enemies. The thing is, just because something works, that it survives from one year to the next, doesn't mean that it's a society worth keeping alive. The caliphates worked for 1400 years. But if I had the power, I would destroy every caliphate everywhere at all times. Because caliphates are pure evil institutions.
Chris, you and me double team, we debate.
It's similar with communism. Communism, communism is an example of a system that genuinely doesn't work. So,
it leads to a lot of people starving.
It genuinely doesn't work. But you're making value judgments. You're using words. You're using ideas like good and bad, and you're using ideas like the family.
I think one is like goodness is related to order, isn't it? Whereas evil is related to chaos.
According to who?
So goodness is basically your guide on the path to order.
But what
whereas
is goodness?
Evil is your guide on the path to chaos.
Goodness? What defines goodness?
So it's a spirit that leads to order.
A spirit, an attitude that leads to order.
A spirit you embody that leads to the establishment of order.
Of order and structure. But what makes order and structure good?
It's because it's a system that works and helps people flourish in their own lives.
But there's many dictatorships that are very structured. Are they good?
No.
Right, why not? They're structured.
Well, they don't, work for the flourishing of everyone.
But how do you define what's flourishing?
So it basically is a system that works for the benefit of everyone who exists within that system.
What's defining the benefit of everyone?
Yes, so basically that they lead a good life.
You're just shuffling, bro.
They lead a good life, and they engage in the path of life as well.
Listen. You're literally just using words and you're just shuffling around. You're not answering the question.
Right.
You're just shuffling from, good is flourishing. Well, what's flourishing? Flourishing is good. Well, what's good? Good is flourishing. What's flourishing? Flourishing is good. I'm not asking you to do the dance.
I think I'm doing more.
I'm asking you to tell me how do we define what is good? What makes something good? Then you say flourishing, and then I say, how do we define what's flourishing? And then you go, it's good.
Right. So I've spoken about order, and I've spoken about the
But we- well,
flourishing
hold on, we
of
used the example-
individual people who live within a society.
What about
and it
dictatorship?
tries to work for the
Dictatorship
benefit of
gives
everyone.
order.
Yeah.
So why isn't that
But
good?
well, it doesn't work for everyone who lives within that society.
Who doesn't? Hold on one second. So you're going back to the flourishing question.
yeah.
But you haven't defined for me how we measure what is flourishing.
So everyone, say, within a particular community, society, whatever level you want to look at it, they're doing well in their lives and they lead a good life. That's
Firstly,
flourishing.
your political narrative is. I'm going to be brutal now. Forgive me.
Go.
But your
Okay.
political narrative is childish.
I don't think so.
Let me explain why. Because you're looking for utopia.
I'm not. No.
Yeah, you did. You said a society in which every single person and every single community and every individual in that
Yeah.
community is doing well in their own life.
That's the ideal.
Exactly, utopia.
No, it's something to
And
aim
that's
for.
childish.
It's not. It's something to aim for. So you try to ensure that's what happens.
But again,
Obviously
you haven't.
people
but
make
what,
mistakes,
What,
don't
what,
they?
what defines that someone is doing well in their own life?
I mean, you could see like whether they have an enjoyable job, whether they
Materialism?
live within a society that is peaceful.
So
whether they have a family, that a loving family.
So you
all of that.
But I'm saying that if anything, we've got that in the West.
I'd
We
say
have-
that's
we have-
rapidly
we have-
disappearing
we have
with the
peace.
incursion of
We have
identity
peace.
politics.
We've had over 70, 80 years of peace.
I think it's becoming far less
One
peaceful
second.
now.
We've had peace. We've had concord. We've got material prosperity. Everything you've defined as good,
Yeah.
the West has in abundance.
I think we're losing all of this now. at
We
the
are
moment.
losing all of this, and we're
Yeah.
losing it precisely because of your logic.
I don't think so.
It is because of your logic. Because what you're trying to say is that if you're just trying to say that we have to achieve these things,
Yeah.
right, for to have this kind of great society, you're not anchoring the concept of human flourishing in something that is more ontological.
Okay.
More about the human being. What you're anchoring in it is in the human doings. That you have children, that you have peace, that you have a job, that you have a holiday every now and then, that you have the ability to freely walk around. You're anchoring goodness in human doings.
Right.
And what I'm saying is that will never satisfy the human soul.
Okay.
And that's exactly why the West is failing, because we've tried to anchor the good because we don't believe in God
Yeah.
in this world.
Uh-huh.
We've tried to anchor the good in what material, worldly, doingly kind of things
Yeah.
and events define a good life. So a good life is, have you got free access to relatively harmless but enjoyable experiences? And are you
right.
able to own sufficient things to make your life comfortable? And are you able to walk freely down the street without the fear of getting mugged? And
Yeah.
do you have a family? Am I touching on all the things that you define as good?
I think if you get a decent combination of that, then
Yeah.
you're on the path to having a good life.
Right,
yeah.
but the West has that, and it's not working.
I think all of that is. I'd say identity politics has been the main driver. Of,
Again,
a system
the
that is
question-
subverting all of that and destroying all of that.
The question goes deeper, and this is why your kind of conservatism can't save the West. Your kind of conservatism is destined to fail, because the questions that lie at the heart of the problems of Western society are deeper than questions about identity politics. They
Right,
come
right.
to the idea of what makes the human soul flourish.
Yeah.
What makes the inner topography of the human being enlarge so much so that even when he is poor,
Yeah.
he doesn't steal. That
Okay.
even when he is rich, he doesn't forget the poor.
Yeah. yeah.
Even when he is single, he doesn't cheat. Even with someone else's wife. That even when someone is alone,
Yeah.
and no one can see, that they still do the good thing.
Right.
Right? That is the kind of education that we need in the West.
Okay.
It is the kind of education that says that you aren't defined by what you own, And you aren't defined by what you do.
Yeah.
You are defined by the principles and the values that you live by.
Sure.
And these values have to be love, hope, and faith, justice, prudence. They have to be about chastity. They have to be about forgiveness. They have to be about a radical commitment to truth and to honesty. These are the things that allow the human soul to flourish. These are the things, because you can only have good societies when you have good people.
Yeah.
But we've got into the West, into this trap of thinking that if you can create good structures that people pass through, orderly structures, that people will be able to somehow discover themselves. And in the process of that self-discovery, they'll naturally become good.
Right.
And time again, we see that doesn't
I think
work.
there's a philosophical element to it as well.
Right, now
I'd
that
agree
we've
with
established,
that,
great, good. Now we've taken a step forward. We've established that our sense of good has to be rooted in something deeper than the material. Brilliant. So let's ask the question again, and this time I want you to remember you said it's more philosophical. How do we define what is good?
I believe it's what leads to order.
So now we're back to this circle again. We just got out of this. We've just said it's got to be something difficult. Let me give you my answer and see if it'll spark some thoughts.
Go for it. Yeah.
How we define that which is good is by defining that which most closely represents God. Because God is good. So his ontology is good.
Yeah.
There is an objective idea of what is good, and that is God. And insofar as our individuality and our social structures reflect that goodness, they are good. It isn't down to your opinion versus my opinion.
Right.
It isn't down to my identity versus his identity. It is down to the fact that there is something concrete, something solid to build on.
Right.
And that is how we define what is good. And we know what God looks like by looking at Jesus. We look at Jesus and we see God. Yeah?
Yes.
Now, I've given you my definition of good.
Yes.
God. What is God? God is truth. God is love. God is the fountain of all hope, the fountain of all mercy. He is the fountain of all truth, the fountain of all life. He is the fountain from which hope springs. He is the basis upon which salvation is wrought. He is that kind. He is all faithfulness.
Okay. Yeah.
He is a God of covenants, one who makes a promise and keeps it. That's what good is.
Yeah.
Have you got a better version to offer to this argument?
I'd say mine goes with more of the older mythological idea of, so you've got the hero's journey and he fights the dragon of chaos. He defeats the dragon of chaos, gets its gold and brings that back to the tribe.
But you think that's a story, right?
So that's the hero's journey.
But it's a story.
Yeah, and
what gives that story value?
It's because it's basically it's the mission of humanity.
Is it true?
Yes.
Based on what?
Based on every experience that ever since our early hominids ancestors were around.
But the thing is,
it was their mission to go out into the world to basically cast a net over the chaos.
I'm sorry.
To defeat the chaos and then to achieve dominion over the world. And that's what we've done.
We can look to various divergent human experiences and construct a narrative along a million different lines of the common human experience.
I think that's the dominant story.
No, we could create a narrative based on the idea that human beings have to die. We can create a narrative based on the idea that human beings have to breathe. We can create a narrative based on the fact that we must overcome
the Bible does create quite a lot of these narratives, and they're in many other religious and other mythological
But what I'm
texts
saying is,
as well.
you can't give me any good reason why I should choose your narrative, but I can give you one why you should choose mine.
I mean, you listed a number of attributes that you can attach
but
to
I
God.
can give you a narrative I can give you a reason as to why you can choose mine.
Right.
Because mine's true.
I
fact.
believe that the story I just gave is the dominant narrative.
You've said
people.
I believe it's a dominant narrative. I said, is it true?
I'd say it's
Based
true.
on what?
based on humanity's experience.
But humanity has many lots of common experiences, so we can construct
this
many
is
kinds
the
of
most,
experiences.
the most sort of dominant narrative.
That's just selective filtering.
throughout our past.
It's just selective filtering.
It's not. If you look at initially, we went out onto the savannah as Australopithecines. We had to become dominant in that environment. We did so. You had the predators attacking us.
So it's a survival of the fittest kind of.
No, we developed the ability to start throwing rocks at them.
That's a survival of the
and
fittest
so
narrative.
we became the dominant species.
So that's a survival of the fittest
and then
narrative.
we moved into other environments around the world.
So that's a survival of the fittest narrative.
Not the fittest, but the particular species that the thinking ape, basically. That's what we were.
So
we were more intelligent than any other species. That's why we.
But this kind of narrative of power and dominance, which is the one that you're talking about, is exactly the one that Nazis were applying when they said the Aryan race is the superior race and should dominate all of the races, particularly the Slavs. And if we can get rid of the Jews, we can conquer the Slavs. How is your narrative any different from theirs?
Okay, so you have the idea that killing other people is a bad thing.
Why?
Because
isn't that the idea of the conqueror?
Someone could quite easily turn that philosophy to you.
Oh, but now you're appealing to something that isn't connected to the hero narrative. The hero narrative says, I bring order to chaos by dominating the chaos.
Yeah, but it wasn't by murdering everyone else in the tribe.
But why not?
Or murdering another band of hunter-gatherers.
But why not?
It was by achieving dominion over the world.
Right, so if I want to bring order to society, all I have to do is conquer, dominate and kill all those that bring disorder, right?
So it's not applied to other people.
Why?
Instead, it was initially applied to how we became the dominant species on the planet. Because that's our history.
No, you're creating a mythology.
Based on our history.
Human beings have killed one another all the way through time. It is the most common human experience.
Right, I mean, we did, unfortunately, engage in violence back then against each other.
Why are you saying unfortunately?
Because it wasn't a good idea.
Why?
Well, early hominids killing each other.
What's wrong with that?
Well, it led
order
to
chaos.
It led to
it allows the champion to arise by killing your enemies.
It led to
the
warfare.
The Ubermensch is brought forward.
Okay.
In conflict and war, the superior man stands tall.
Right.
In conflict and killing, the champion dominates.
But
what's wrong with that narrative?
But equally, do you think we should have become the dominant species on this planet? Or
what
not?
I'm trying to okay, so I'll stop parodying now.
So in the story of the Garden of Eden, like God accepts
you don't believe in that narrative. You don't believe in that narrative.
That man is the champion of
all
the beasts of the field and all the fowl of the air.
Do you believe in that narrative?
I believe that's a powerful story that actually shows that point in our development.
You're shuffling. Do you believe in that narrative?
No, that's the way I see it.
So you don't believe in that narrative? Fine.
I don't believe it's true in the same sense that you do.
So you don't believe in that narrative?
I believe it's true in that it shows how we developed as a species.
Your mythos is inconsistent. Because what you're trying to say is, I want to see the champion, I want to see the dominance, I want to see the conquering. But I don't want the killing that comes with
the dominant species on this planet.
But why can't we kill one another to do that?
It's a bad idea when we turn that philosophy to each other.
No.
It's not such a bad idea when we decide that we need to
billions of human beings.
Take on the lions. It's not such a bad idea then.
Bro, I wish you would address my question. Why can't I kill you if you are inconvenient to me being the champion?
Because that system leads to chaos.
No, I will win. So therefore there will be order.
It doesn't work out that way.
But it does.
In the long term, it doesn't work out that way.
Human history is replete with examples where order has been established at the edge of the sword. So what's wrong with killing?
I don't think it works. I think what you see is the implosion of particular societies in violence.
And the Roman Empire was one of the most violent societies in history. And it did well for over 2,000 years.
It didn't do well for that long.
I'm afraid you don't know history. The Roman Empire lasted from, I think it was 600 years BC or 400 years BC through to 1453.
Yeah, but I mean, I'd say about 400 AD it fell quite significantly. at that
Only
point.
in the West.
Yeah.
In the West, it continued in the East.
Okay. All right.
So you don't know your history, bro.
I mean, I know some of it.
And you don't know.
I
your
don't know all
history.
of it.
My point to you is, you're carrying out what C.S. Lewis described as historicism, which is that you're trying to say that we can establish an overarching narrative of history
Yeah.
based upon the little glimpse, the little tiny spectrum of history that we have access to.
Yeah.
And then from that tiny spectrum, we're able to draw out what is the grand historical narrative that will guide us in how we live our life. It is foolhardy as Hegelianism, it's as foolhardy as Marxism. They all participated in the same nonsensical ideas.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing.
don't think so.
You're just got a different story. Your story is, rather than one of economy as Marx was, yours is more of a Nietzschean one, and the idea of the emergence of the champion establishing order in the chaos.
No, I'm saying that we needed, like in our past, to become the dominant species on this planet. Otherwise, we wouldn't be. We'd still be, in the rainforest, on the savannah, and we'd still be under the thumb of the lions there.
Yeah, so
we needed to become dominant.
Yeah, it's a Darwinian one. It's a Darwinian narrative.
No, that's our history.
Right, but your narrative of history, firstly, is missing huge amounts. And ultimately, if you are consistent to the values that emerge from that story...
I'm saying it's all about the processes,
but
basically.
if you're consistent...
I think, it's like if we get back to traditionalism, it's about those processes. It's about monogamy, it's about marriage.
No,
it's about, the preservation
why
of
is
the local
monogamy... You've
community.
got this is my criticism of your argument, bro, and my criticism of your entire position. Is firstly, it's based on historicism. Secondly, you've got massive amounts of cognitive dissonance that you just can't see.
I don't think so. It's
like 1 second.
So the whole ideology of traditionalism is about the preservation of the path of life.
Let me try to explain another example. Let me give an example of the cognitive dissonance.
My problem is, say, if you
haven't heard my
Christian
criticism.
who
You haven't
doesn't
heard my
promote
criticism.
traditionalism,
My
then
criticism
they're equally
is,
likely to become a liberal,
my
and
criticism
they're equally
is,
likely not to continue their
my
society.
criticism is that you're trying to say things. Your narrative,
and you do have liberal churches.
Your narrative does not justify monogamy. Your narrative doesn't justify the fact that I shouldn't be able to kill you. Your narrative doesn't.
It does.
No, it doesn't.
Because it's just not one narrative. I use more than one word.
Yeah.
I can't just relate everything to God. I have to be a bit more nuanced in the arguments I'm making.
That's also a very simplistic view of Christianity. But this is why, bro. Your kind of conservatism is a dead, floating dirt.
I don't think so. I think it's there's a need to actually get
You
back
can't get to
that
monogamy
promotion
from
of
your
traditionalism.
narrative. Why?
But the problem is, like I'm not sure you're seeing this correctly, but so you've got a lot of liberal churches today.
Yes.
And you have a lot of promotion of the idea that it's okay to be gay, it's okay to be whatever, live life however you want, and then you're going down exactly the same path. So I'm saying it's about the processes.
Because
you need to follow the processes.
I agree that the way that the church community can the only way that the church community can transmit its values is if it has the kinds of institutions that permit the transmission of those values. But my criticism, and in that point we're both agreed. The process of transmission is very important. How do you create a community that transmits a certain set of values? But what I'm saying to you is an essential part of that process of transmission is to anchor those values in a self-sustaining narrative.
Right.
And the narrative that you are trying to maintain is in total cognitive dissonance to the values you're trying to uphold. That's my criticism of you.
I'm trying,
you're right
I'm
in what
trying
you're
to
saying.
maintain it in a logical narrative.
But you're failing,
You're
bro.
putting it into the older religious narrative.
Yeah, but you're failing.
I don't think it's a failure.
Because
doing this.
and let me try to.
I believe the problem is that there's a lot of arrogance, or there was, in the atheist and Enlightenment movements, that you can just get rid of all of the structure of Christianity and somehow things will work.
Right, but let's you look at a concrete example. The example of the family.
Yeah.
Right? I believe in the family, and the definition of the family has been a man and a woman,
Yeah.
married, with their children and their extended bloodlines.
Yeah.
And I believe it because that is what is described in this book.
Yeah.
Now, without appealing to this book, just based on your narrative of the emergent champion, the Darwinian survival narrative,
Yeah.
how can you justify a man and woman monogamous family as opposed to the fact that we can have families connected to the ideas of polygamy?
So scientifically, I can do this.
Go on.
And so it's based on our development as early hominids.
Yep.
Generally, we did pair bond.
Yep.
We've always done this as a species, and we've always had the children growing up under the care of the parents. And so this happens within a wider tribe of around 150 members, which is also the average size of the church community.
Right, now let
what the
No,
church
hold on
has
one
done,
second.
what
You've
all
got it wrong
religions
again.
have done,
You've got
is
it
they
wrong
have
again.
emulated
You got it
the
wrong again.
conditions that we developed
Okay, you
in
got it
as
wrong
earlier
again.
hominids.
You got it wrong again. Because if you look in history,
Yeah.
what you realise is that the rich and the powerful always had concubines.
Yeah,
The rich and the powerful.
we didn't have money for most of our development.
Right, so
we were hunter-gatherers.
But my point is, from your narrative,
Yeah.
now that most of us are rich enough that we can maybe sustain having more than one wife, why not?
Because I think there's a need to emulate those conditions that we flourished in as earlier hominids. And I think that's what religion has always done.
But human beings flourished in environments of conflict.
Right. I mean, we did, but yeah.
So why can't we replicate those conditions? Because you just said we've
but
you try
to establish. This is the Jordan Peterson arguments, yeah. That you basically you're trying to establish order within, and there's the whole world around you, which is chaos.
Yeah.
And the world doesn't care about you, and it doesn't care about humanity.
Yeah.
And so there's a need to actually create a bulwark against that.
Do you know what Jordan Peterson is doing though? He's taking the philosophy of Nietzsche, and he's taking biblical archetypes, and he's pushing them through a filter of psychology, particularly Jungian psychology. That is the exercise of Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
And it is something that I have a lot of sympathy for, and I have a lot of time for. But I'm trying to point out to you that your narrative, here's the rubrics of the narrative I've picked up from you so far. 1, we should imitate the conditions of early hominids because those hominids flourished. 2, that the structures are...
obviously we build a more elaborate system
Structures...
than they do, but we have to stick to those structures.
Structures are important to transmit values, and that the narrative is the idea of the champion emerging, or the species emerging, from a sort of survival of the fittest to the idea of the champion establishing order over chaos.
Yeah.
These are the rubrics of your narrative. But this is where I'm accusing you.
I wouldn't say it's survival of the fittest. I'd say it's dominion of humanity over the planet,
which is Darwinian. So
but it's not survival of the fittest humans, because we are a small collective species. So we have always, we're not individualists. We've always functioned and flourished as a small collective.
Yeah.
Not just on our own.
Here's what I'm accusing you of.
Yeah.
Cognitive dissonance.
I know.
Because your values,
you mentioned this
your values of monogamy, your values of don't kill me, your values of, because that wouldn't be good. Your values of one assumes that you believe that we should be honest.
Yes.
Yeah. None of these are rooted in the rubrics of your narrative. They are Christian values that are rooted in a Christian understanding of morality and virtue. Those,
I mean,
one second.
I think there's useful useful mythological archetypes.
Those virtues are based upon our vision of God. Without that vision of God, there's nothing to say that we should be radically committed to truth. There's nothing to say that we should be radically committed to chastity. There's nothing to say that we should even have a concept of justice, nor to define what justice is.
Okay, so
we get all of that from the Bible and our
think
vision of God.
I think for me, you're like, in a way, you think that you see God as the divine being, and I see the attempt to create an ordered society as the divine quest.
Right, but your attempt to create an ordered society is rudderless, compassless, mapless.
It's not.
It is a ship on an ocean with no points of reference.
It's not. It's the.
What are the points of reference?
The points of reference. I mean, it depends what the situation is, what the context is, but that is the underlying goal. Is the preservation of order.
Shall I tell you what I think emerges from the rubrics of your narrative? It is the idea of the champion. It is the idea of the stronger man. It is the idea that power dominates and that domination creates order, and that order creates peace.
Dominion over society creates order, certainly.
Correct. So the stronger man is the one that does that.
The one who's able to go into the chaos of nature, take on the dragon of chaos.
We've done
defeat.
that.
No, you need to do that all the time.
Right. So
every time you go out into the world, you need to do that.
I see you as an element of chaos.
That never ends.
You're an element of chaos.
I don't think so.
You're an agent of chaos.
No.
Why not?
Because it's only something that actually threatens you.
You do threaten the church. You're an atheist that goes to church. You want the church not to believe in God. You're an agent of chaos.
I don't see other people as an agent of chaos who need to be defeated.
I see you as an agent of chaos. From your narrative, what should I do to you? From your narrative, not mine. What should I do to you from your narrative? Because I see you as an agent of chaos.
That's disingenuous, because I don't see you as an agent of chaos.
No, it's not disingenuous. No, I'm not being disingenuous.
I don't see you as an agent of chaos.
I see you as an agent of chaos. According to your narrative, what should I do to you?
Right, so that's obviously that takes you down a dark path.
What should I do to you according to your narrative?
Oh, well, you have to defeat the narrative or the person.
Yeah. You know what Jesus said? Jesus said, those that don't gather in with me scatter abroad. Those that are not for me are against me.
Okay.
Right? Jesus is the champion. He is the one that brings order to chaos. He is the one that conquers the dragon of chaos, to use that
I personally believe we all have to do this all the time.
By imitating who?
By actually trying to work out what the problem is and what we need to do to fix it.
That's my point. I said by imitating who? Now, if you had an anchor, if you had a waypoint, if you had a point of reference, you would have pointed to something on the horizon and you would have gone by imitating X, Y, or Z, by being like X, Y, or Z. But all you did is you went back to the processes.
Yeah.
And that's my point. You have no anchor. You have no guiding star.
No,
I
think we do.
No, I asked you. No, you had your chance, bro. I said to you, how do we become the champion? Who do we imitate? And you referred to the processes, which means the processes are their own points of reference. It's like looking at the waves on the ocean.
Is a way of solving the problem.
It's like looking on the waves of the ocean and going that way. Why? Because the waves are going that way.
No.
Because the waves are coming this way, so we'll go that way.
What you do is, say if you're, a ship navigator, is you generally work out where you're trying to get to, and you have your map and you have your compass, and so you rely on each of these instruments because they've been crafted and they work. And you rely on the process, and by doing that, you're able to, you're able to win over the chaos that is all around you and threatens you.
The only way that we can win over the chaos around us is by imitating Jesus. That is the only way.
I mean, we've just got a fundamental disagreement on that point.
But this is the point. You are an agent of chaos.
I don't think I am.
Because you are someone who goes to church and you don't want the church to believe in God.
No. I mean, I'm happy for that to continue. What I think needs to happen is I believe there needs to be basically an atheist movement that believes in traditionalism.
But it's rudderless and rootless.
I don't think it is.
It cannot sustain itself because the narrative that you appeal to, right? The narrative that you appeal to does not sustain the values you want to sustain.
I think it does. Because I think it's just a bunch of processes that lead to the preservation of the path of life.
Yeah.
And that morality generally are the processes that lead to the continuation and flourishing of your civilization.
Let's take a step back. This No, thank you, bro. No, we'll move for you, Uncle. God bless. Peace be with you. Well, let's move this way. He's older than us. Further back. Just go right back, bro. Right back. Okay, here's fine. Yeah. So, I would want to leave you with this thought from Hebrews 12. Therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, that's all the people that came before us, all the saints, all the apostles, all the prophets, all the martyrs, all the people that walked the way of Christian civilization before us.
Yeah.
That's who he's talking about. He's actually talking about all the people that walked the path of Jewish civilization.
Sure.
But we include that because we're Judeo-Christians. Yeah? Okay? Therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us also lay aside every encumbrance and the sin which so easily entangles us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus. Remember when I said, who do we imitate to be this champion? I was hoping that you would say Jesus, but you didn't. And that's why I said I accuse you of being rudderless and rootless. Because we fix our eyes on Jesus. He is the champion to imitate. He is the one that brings order to the chaos. He is the guiding star. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith. All those Christian values that you so want to desperately hold on to in your traditionalism. He's the one that perfects them all. He's the one that is the fountain from which they emerge. Who for the joy set before him endured the cross. This is why he is the champion. Because they killed him and he still won. You can't get much more of a victory than that.
Okay, sure.
He endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him who has endured such hostility by sinners against himself, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. That's what happened to the West. They took their eyes off Jesus, and then they have grown weary. They have grown tired. They have become haggard. They have become rootless. They have become hopeless. They have become inspirationless. The West and all of its calamity is because they took the eyes off Jesus. That's where we need to fix our eyes again on Jesus.
I appreciate you think that. I think it's the preservation of order. That's the highest ideal.
Back to the dictatorship. Anyway, agent of chaos.
There we are. Cheers, mate.
Thankfully, I follow a Christian narrative.
Right.
Which means that even though I do see you as an agent of chaos, I would not seek to oppress you and to dominate you and to crush you to establish order.
Okay, right, cool. Fair enough.
God bless you. Peace with you. So, the gentleman that we just spoke to is someone who's clearly influenced by Jordan Peterson, and he's tapped more into the Nietzschean side of what Jordan Peterson is saying rather than the biblical archetypes of what Jordan Peterson is talking about. Like so many conservatives and traditionalists in Europe, we've got a situation where people can see that Western civilization is ill, that it's uninspirational, that it is hopeless, that it is haggard, that it is weak, that it is backstepping, that it is flaking around the edges, that it is cowering before its enemies, and that it is compromising to those that wish to destroy it. And it is doing that because it has taken its eyes off Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith. You cannot sustain Christian narratives, Christian values. You can't sustain all of those traditional beliefs without the meta-narrative, without the paradigm that is the root of them, that nourishes them with the nutrients and the water that allows them to bear fruit. Without that narrative, they wither and die on the vine. And that's what we're seeing in the West. A Western civilization that without a root is dying on the vine. So I would say to all of you traditional conservatives, to all of you people that want to hold on to Christian values, you cannot do it unless you fix your eyes on Jesus, unless he is the author and the perfecter of your faith.
Perfect.